Hello, I'm Kevin Karplus, and I've been judging science fairs for a couple decades at least. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to use a rubric when doing judging. The particular rubric I'm going to use is one that is planned to be used for the 2023 Santa Cruz Science Fair, but the principles I'm talking about apply to most rubrics. This particular form has got two sides. On one side, there's a rather long and wordy rubric, and on the other side, there is a basically blank page with a few slots for putting notes in. Now, the idea of a rubric for science fair is primarily to help new judges figure out which things they should be looking at, to remind them of some of the important things to be looking for. There's no way that a rubric can be complete. And so don't expect this thing to be, well, it didn't mention on the form, so I don't have to care about that. This is only to talk about some of the things that apply to almost every project. And it's mainly to provide a reminder for new judges or judges who haven't done it for a while about what sort of things we look for. There is no obligation to use the rubric. The point of this thing is to help you take notes and pay attention to things that will matter when you do the discussion with other judges about which are the winning projects, and perhaps more importantly, to be able to fill out a form that goes to the students, giving them feedback on what's good and not so good about their project. So the idea is not to have this form, the rubric form, go to the students. This is purely for your own notes. You should then distill that information down into something that you can provide to the students. Okay, so what are the main things about this form? Perhaps the most important thing is make sure that you identify the project and make sure that the notes you're taking are for the project that you think you're taking notes for. There are often many rather similar projects, and if you don't get the project number and the student names or something correct, you may be talking about a different project than the one you thought you were. So be very sure that you've got the right project and write it down. Don't assume that, okay, the third form is the one that you'll remember them. You won't. Okay, so what are the categories that we have on here? The first part here is pretty much about scientific process. Now, I usually judge in science and engineering fairs, and for engineering projects, the criteria are different than they are for science projects. Obviously, understanding the scientific process gets changed to understanding the engineering process. And we don't usually have a hypothesis in an engineering project. We have a design goal, and the two are serving the same function within the project, but they're not the same thing at all. And I'm probably going to do a separate video on what is a hypothesis to talk more about what we're looking for there. Control and variables are, again, talking mainly about the scientific process. For an engineering project, this is more how is the project tested? How do you know that the design does what you're trying to get in the design goal? And then drawing conclusions based on evidence, pretty much. Does the design meet the goal for an engineering project? Okay, so those are pretty standard things that most judges end up looking for. Some other things we look for. Repetition. This is something that varies quite a bit from project to project, how much repetition is appropriate. And I think I'll do another video on how many is enough to talk in more detail about that. References. We expect for both engineering and science projects that students have done some reading, possibly watching videos, and that they have listed what their sources were for their preliminary information. They need to do library research or reading about their project before they really can form a hypothesis or set a design goal. And we want them to be able to feed back to the judges this understanding, the understanding of the engineering and science concepts that are appropriate for their project. And that's one of the primary functions of the interview with the students, is to find out what the students really understand about what they're doing. The oral presentation, we look for enthusiasm and engaging presentation. But again, a big chunk of this is, does the student really understand what they've been doing? It's a chance to check to make sure that the student did the work. And again, I'm planning to do another video on, did the mentor do it? And finally, there's the poster project and the project logbook. Poster project, the poster presentation should have good graphics in the sense that they should be very informative. You should be able to look at the poster and figure out what the student has done, what they accomplished, without having to listen to somebody go through a spiel about it. It should be a standalone thing, because most of the posters will be seen by people without the student being there to explain what it means. Logbook is not required of all projects, but for students who are going on to state or international science fairs, they definitely need a contemporary log book of what they've done. And so we try to encourage that even at the lower levels, like the county science fair. Okay, so these are, again, not a complete list of all the things to look for. And you notice that there's no numeric things associated with it. There isn't a 3 points for this and 4 points for that, because how important these different things are varies quite a bit with what the project is. And some projects, repetition is a really important thing, and others that's not really the big thing. Clear statement of hypothesis is much more important. In others, the quality of the graphs is what really matters. So use this to guide you in what things to look for, but don't treat it as, gee, there's 3 points for this and 4 points for this. It's not a quantitative thing. And that's why I don't really use the rubric side. I take notes on this more freeform thing where I've got half a page to put in whatever comments I have, questions, what students did. And there's just some guidelines here of what's to help you organize your notes. What went into scientific thought, when it went into the oral presentation, what's there to say about the data collection, the methods, the evidence, the repetitions, whatever is relevant there. And if you've got some notes about, hey, the mentor did something, or parents did something, this is a place to jot that down also. And down at the bottom, there's some sort of check boxes here, and these check boxes are the same as the check boxes at the top of the student feedback form. So just it gives you a chance to mark that stuff while you're taking notes about the student. That's about all I really have on the rubric itself. It's primarily intended as a guideline for new judges or judges who haven't done any judging in a while, and it's to help you take notes for the discussion and for the feedback forms. That's about it.